The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark.
Glory to the Lord.
The Pharisees approached Jesus and asked, "Is it lawful for a husband to divorce his wife?" They were testing him. He said to them in reply, "What does Moses command you?" They replied, "Moses permitted a husband to write a bill of divorce and dismiss her." But Jesus told them, "Because of the hardness of your hearts, he wrote you this commandment. But from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, no human being must separate." In the house, the disciples again questioned Jesus about this. He said to them, "Whoever divorces his wife and marries another commits adultery against her. And if she divorces her husband and marries another, she commits adultery." My brothers and sisters, the Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
October is a very special month, and we like to say as a Dominican that there are three important things to the month of October. As Dominicans who wear the rosary on our habit, and I have my rosary here, we're reminded that October is the month of the Holy Rosary. And we encourage people to continue to pray and have a devotion to Our Lady through the prayers of the Rosary. The second thing is that we celebrate in the month of October the month for respect of human life. And the Church is telling us that we need to respect human life from conception until natural death. So we pray for a greater respect for human life, and especially for an end to abortion in this special month. And then the third thing that we celebrate in the month of October, October is called the month of the missions. And it begins with the feast of the little flower, St. Therese, which was on Friday. She's the patroness of the missions. And throughout the month, we highlight the missions. On the 24th of October, the Church celebrates World Mission Sunday. And that's the Sunday that every Catholic church in Africa, Asia, North and South America has the Mission Sunday collection. But today, Monsignor Caldwell has asked me just to give a little story and to share with you all what is happening in the church in the farthest place of the world, in the South Pacific Solomon Islands. As Father Zach mentioned, my name is Chris Cardone. I am a Dominican friar, and I've been a missionary in the South Pacific Solomon Islands for 32 years. It's about 9,000 miles away from Merrick, and it's a country that has 900 islands. People live on 300 islands, and the people travel by small boats to many, many distant places. All of the priests and the bishop have a small boat about 19 foot long with a 40 horsepower engine, and that's how you visit the many, many scattered island communities. And I must say that people live on about 300 islands, and I've been there for 32 years. I've been bishop there for 20 years. I think I've visited at least 150 of those islands. So you do a lot of traveling by small boat. The uniform of the bishop is blue Bermuda shorts with a white shirt. And I always like to tell people too that our gasoline is $12 US for 1 gallon of gasoline. So don't complain when you go to the gas station next time. The Solomons was very famous. Let me just preface that too. I always like to mention that though I work 9,000 miles away from Long Island, I grew up here in Long Island. I grew up in Lynbrook. I went to St. Raymond's School, graduated from St. Raymond's. I went to Chaminade High School. I went to Providence College, and that's where I met the Dominicans. And I'm very fortunate that my dad is still with us. We have our stepmother, Anne. I have an older brother, Tommy. Maybe some of you know him. Tommy is also a priest, and he teaches at Kellenberg, Father Tom, and I believe that he came this past Lent to do some talks for a parish mission here in Kiore. And I also have two sisters who are married. My late mom used to always say, and my sisters used to say, that in the family we have two saints and two sinners. And my sisters are the ones who say that they're the saints of the family. So, and I agree with them on that. The Solomon Islands is a very, very interesting place. It's just about 3 hours northeast of Australia. It's located below the equator. It's a very, very hot and humid place. It's usually between 85 and 95 degrees all year round. There's no air conditioning in the churches or in the bishop's house, and people get used to the hot and humid weather. It's a place where most people are involved in a subsistence economy. About 90% of the people are fishermen and farmers. They grow their own food. It's a place where we're blessed with really great fishing. We're blessed with good gardens. The people grow, as I said, the majority of their food. It's one of the few places in the world where nobody is homeless because people can build their houses easily of bamboo and thatched roofs. And it's a place where nobody's homeless, nobody's hungry, because people have a lot of natural food, the different types of marine life, and also bananas and cucumbers and cabbage and all kinds of fruits and vegetables. And then it's special too because it's a country, the only country that I know of in the world, where there are no nursing homes. All of the elderly are looked after by their families. So it's really been a very, very interesting place. And I was sent there 32 years ago. And interestingly, I was sent there for 3 years. And then the bishop, who was an Irish Dominican, asked me to spend 3 more years and 3 more years and 3 more years. And my mother used to always say, when are those 3 years going to be up? But it's been a great blessing to be there for 32 years, and I've been bishop there for 20 years. And another interesting thing is that the Solomon Islands was famous up until about 1920 for headhunters and cannibals. So it was a place where there were many, many warring tribes. The first bishop there was killed. He was a French Marist bishop. A number of the missionaries were killed. Some of the missionaries were eaten. And my mother again used to say that it's nice to know that the missionaries are no longer part of the soup in the Solomon Islands. And thanks to the hard work of the first missionaries, it's a place where the church is growing. It's a place where the church is flourishing. The missionaries have been permanently there since about 1898. And it's really amazing because there were scattered islands, scattered tribal people, and because of the gospel, because of the church introducing healthcare and education, the country it's about 90% Christian at this time. Catholic Church in the island of Guadalcanal, where I live, is about 40% of the population. And it's a place like the United States in the 50s and 60s where we're opening parishes and opening new communities. Like in the Archdiocese where I am, which is on the island of Guadalcanal, which was famous during the war, we're still opening parishes, we're opening schools, and we're opening convents. So it's really a different experience. During the Second World War, Guadalcanal was famous because the American Marines, the American Armed Forces, they stopped the advance of the Japanese. So the people have a great love and a great respect for the American Armed Forces. And the other interesting World War II story is the fact that President Kennedy, when he was a young Navy lieutenant, he was captain of PT-109, a relatively small wooden patrol boat. And his boat, PT-109, got crashed into a Japanese destroyer. The ship caught on fire. Kennedy was able to rescue about 10 of the crew members, and they swam to a very, very small island that's about the size of this church building, a very tiny island. And the story gets even more interesting is that after about 2 days two native boys about the age of Jaden, our altar server here. They were going past the island, and Kennedy called them over. He had a coconut shell, and he scratched in the coconut shell, 11 alive. And he told them to paddle about 20 miles to the American naval base, and that's how Kennedy and his crew were saved. And if you go to the Kennedy Museum in Boston, they have the desk of President Kennedy there when he was president in the White House, and he kept that coconut shell up until he died on his desk to remind him of the gentleman that rescued him. And it occurred in a place where I was the pastor, and I actually knew one of the two guys who rescued President Kennedy. They were both Methodists. They were of the Methodist Church. And one of the guys, his name is Biku, he got married. He had 10 kids. One of his daughters married a Catholic guy, and the whole family became Catholic. So I used to go to their island, the island of Ranonga, to celebrate Mass. And every morning, they still hoist the American flag, again in Thanksgiving, for the good things that the Americans did there. The church, as I said, has been active since about 1898. The church is heavily involved in healthcare and education and the living and the spreading of the gospel. And I just share with you a few statistics. When I first went there in 1988, I was sent to be a teacher and to be a parish priest. And at that time, in 1988, we only had 10 native Solomon Island priests. These are young Melanesian men. They're black Melanesian tribal people. And at that time, in 1988, we had about 50 missionary priests from Ireland, England, the United States, and Australia. And now, 32 years later, we have 70 local native priests, 70 local priests, and we have about 150 native local sisters. And an interesting thing is that all the priests and all the sisters are younger than the bishop, and I'm 63. So it's a pretty young and fast-growing community. And as I mentioned, we're opening schools, opening parishes, opening convents. In our cathedral parish, we have about 8,000 people that come to Mass on Sunday. This crowd would be the kind of crowd that we would have at our daily Mass. So we have about 8,000 people that come to 4 Masses. And of that crowd, like for the Archbishop's Mass, which is like the 9 o'clock Mass, the main Mass on Sunday, about 2,500 people. And 70% of that crowd would be under age 30. So it's really a very, very young population. I'm usually the oldest guy at every Mass that I celebrate. So it's a great grace and a great blessing to be in a mission church and to see the church grow and to see the church flourish. So my job today is to thank you for your prayers. Thank you for supporting the missions. Thanks for the good things that happen in the United States that enables us to have so many missionaries in many different places. And the last part, I would just like to encourage all of you to continue to be good missionaries here on Long Island. I sometimes feel that Long Island needs missionaries more than the missions. And we all know people who aren't going to church or aren't active. And I'd like to encourage you all to be good missionaries, to pray for your families, pray for your children, pray for your grandchildren. Give good advice to our young people. We often joke in our family that even though my dad is 92, he's still giving his children, his grandchildren, and his great-grandchildren a lot of good advice. So mothers and fathers and grandparents and great-grandparents here present, give advice in the faith to your children. Pray for them always and continue to live the faith and live it joyfully. One very special thing about Curie of Oz Parish is that you have a parish that is beautiful. It has a beautiful environment. You're a welcoming community. You're a friendly community. You're a community that has joyful music. continue to be a joyful community. And that's the way that people are attracted to the faith, and that's a great way to spread the gospel. So I thank you for your faith. We thank you for the beautiful music. Thanks to Vladimir, our pianist there. And we ask God to continue to give us all the gifts that we need to know God's will, to do it, and to share it joyfully, today and always, forever and ever. Amen. Let us stand now and profess our faith.